I woke up one morning and I looked down and my toes were black. That was not a good day.
When the snow melts, they find them buried dead in the snow.
I've been homeless since October. It's been really hard. I haven't worked in over 6 years, so it's kind of hard to look for a job when you haven't worked for so long.
We can get in trouble out here, there's no doubt about it. I've had friends lose their legs falling asleep out in the snow.
Never thought growing up that this would be my life, but this is where I am. Most people don't face the challenges that we have here living on the streets out here.
The next step is to actually get some finances coming in, as in like working, getting built up, and getting to where this doesn't need to be here.
Welcome, Homeless Life Stories.
In the winter of 2025, Alaska entered the cold season, with around 3,000 people experiencing homelessness in Anchorage alone, and nowhere near enough beds to hold them.
The older you get, the harder it is for you to maintain your heat.
Every year, dozens of people are still found dead outside, in snow-covered tents, in broken-down cars, on dark, unmarked trails. In this video, we follow Mark and others like him, people who broke a leg, ended up in the hospital, then a nursing home, and were discharged only to discover that their old houses were gone, their belongings cleared out, and the only place left for them was a spot in a long line at the soup kitchen and another spot on a waiting list for an empty bed. At one end of the system, the city is forced to open shelter lobbies overnight so people can curl up in plastic chairs just to stay alive. At the other end, new policies allow encampments to be cleared and people sleeping outside to be ticketed, even when there is literally nowhere else for them to go. If we can understand how a place as vast, resource-rich, and sparsely populated as Alaska still ends up with people queuing just to survive, we will gain a clearer understanding of how the rest of the United States treats its poorest residents. This is Homeless Life Stories, and if you believe their lives are worth more than a missing bed in the system, stay with us until the end, leave a like, a comment, and subscribe so they don't disappear in silence.
And now I got broken foot and broken hand. Thanks to the police officer who broke my hand the other day.
Chapter 1. Mark a city with no empty beds. In the past 2 years, Anchorage has recorded roughly 50 deaths each year among people experiencing homelessness outdoors, bodies found in snow tents, in abandoned vehicles, or along deserted trails. Every face is a story that never had the chance to be fully told. Before he broke his leg, Mark had everything most people would call stable: a small house in Anchorage, an old truck, a camper, and a boat for summer. Then a pipe burst. Sewage flooded the basement. Mold started to crawl up the walls. Repair costs, medical bills, credit card debt, together they added up to a number no working-class paycheck could ever catch. Mark understood that better than anyone, speaking quietly to us, as if afraid to wake those curled up on the floor around him. He says, "I always thought this only happened to someone else." Then one day, that someone else was me. In Anchorage in the winter of 2025, an empty bed became the line between having any chance to start over and freezing to death unseen. But the bigger question is this: how does a city of just over 300,000 people allow 3,000 of its residents to fall straight through such a thin safety net? In the next part, we'll pull the camera back, stepping away from the plastic chairs in a crowded shelter lobby to look at Alaska as a whole, a state of more than 1.7 million square kilometers, where numbers that look small on paper carry life or death weight on the ground. Stay with Homeless Life Stories. And if you haven't yet, a like, a share, and a subscribe right now will help make sure Mark's story isn't buried under the winter snow.
It's very, very cold, and you get hungry and thirsty, and it's not a good place to be.
Chapter 2. Alaska in small numbers with a heavy price. On the map of the United States, Alaska looks like a distant puzzle piece hanging off the upper left corner of the screen.
I didn't have no place to go.
The entire state has just over 700,000 people spread across more than 1.7 million square kilometers, less than one person per square kilometer. If you only look at spreadsheets, a few thousand people experiencing homelessness here might seem small compared to giants like California or New York. But in temperatures of -20, -30, even -40 degrees, every single number suddenly becomes a real human body testing the limits of what a person can survive. In a warm, densely populated city, you can walk past homelessness and mentally file it under the usual noise of urban life. In Alaska, just one lonely tent on the side of an ice-crusted road is enough to make your chest tighten, because you know that if the wind shifts one bad night, the person inside may not get a second chance.
It's up here where you have to duck down.
Here, small numbers are not a reason to relax. They are a warning that tragedy is happening quietly nearby, with very few witnesses. And once we understand the weight behind those numbers, the question is no longer how many, but who is carrying the heaviest pain, who is being left furthest behind in this Arctic cold. In the next chapter, Homeless Life Stories will go deeper into the layers of history and injustice that have pushed some Alaskans, especially Native communities, to the margins of the very land their ancestors have lived on for generations. If what you've heard so far makes you feel the need to see more clearly, help this video travel further with a like, a share, and a subscribe, so that voices from Alaska aren't buried under the ice for yet another winter.
You gotta get off the streets.
Some people get frostbite, some people don't survive.
Chapter 3. When nature becomes a silent predator. In 2024 to 2025, Anchorage recorded around 50 deaths each year among people in the homeless community. On a report that fits neatly into one short line. Pulled apart, it becomes individual bodies found in snow tents, in old cars parked in forgotten corners of lots, on narrow trails where no one imagines a person would try to sleep through the night. Many people try to keep warm with camp stoves, candles, and makeshift heaters. It only takes one small mistake, smoke, lack of oxygen, hypothermia, and by morning they simply don't wake up. A man we met near Ship Creek spoke so softly it sounded like he was talking about someone else. "I'm not afraid of the cold. I'm afraid I'll fall asleep and no one will know I was ever here." In that sentence, the temperature is only half the story. The other half is the fear of disappearing from the world quietly, no name, no face, no one to remember you were ever alive. In many other states, being homeless means enduring rain and heat. In Alaska, it means that every night you are gambling with sub-zero temperatures, wind, ice, and darkness, while the rest of the city glows and moves as if nothing is happening. And among the people forced to stake their lives in that game, one group is hit far harder than most: indigenous communities who have lived here long before Alaska existed on any US map. In the next chapter, Homeless Life Stories will trace that wound back through history to understand how just 15% of the population can end up carrying more than 40% of the state's homelessness.
I've been homeless for 14 years. This is a new situation for my girlfriend.
Chapter 4, The Historical Wound, when 15% of the people carry 40% of the homelessness. Spread a map of Alaska out on the table and it looks endless, a land without limits. But once you zoom in on the numbers, a very clear injustice comes into focus. Alaska Natives make up only about 15% of the state's population, yet they account for more than 40% of people experiencing homelessness. That means for every 10 people sleeping in snow tents, under bridges or on frozen benches, nearly half are Alaska Natives, communities who have lived on this land long before any national border existed. This is not a story about who worked harder or who made bad choices. It is the story of an entire history being stacked on the shoulders of one group. Community elders tell us about generations uprooted from traditional villages and land-based ways of living, about boarding schools and traumas passed down that were never allowed to fully heal. When the modern cash economy and urban development arrived, very few policies were built with their cultures in mind. Mental health services often don't speak their language or understand their worldview. Shelters don't always allow space for cultural or spiritual practices. Job programs are designed around individualism, not the collective way many Native families care for one another. So every shock, a failed fishing season, a major illness, a move to the city to look for work, can more easily turn into a long slide into homelessness. No home, no address, and no system that truly sees or understands them.
Sometimes it's kind of tough, but you just get used to it.
Chapter 5. A system that can't keep UP with winter. In the legal codes, winter is never mentioned. But in Anchorage, you only need to step outside for a few minutes to understand. Any law or policy that doesn't account for the cold will land squarely on the backs of the people sleeping on the street. In 2024, the U.S. Supreme Court's grants past decision allowed cities to fine or arrest people for sleeping in public spaces, even when there aren't enough shelter beds. On a legal map, it looks like a tool for managing public order. On Alaska's frozen ground, it quickly becomes justification to clear encampments at the exact moment people most need every scrap of tarp, every corner of cover they can find. After that ruling, Alaska's Department of Transportation began cleanup operations along highways, under overpasses and around areas labeled dangerous for traffic. Notices to vacate were posted, trucks rolled in, and work crews rolled up soaked tarps and tossed them into dumpsters. On paper, the roads became safer and more accessible. But almost no one could answer the hardest question. Where are those people supposed to go when shelters in the city have been full since early afternoon? We tell them, you can't camp here, the road has to be clear. Then we tell them, the shelter is full, you'll have to wait outside. In the gap between those two orders are real human beings hunched beside the tree line, sitting in parking lots, leaning against dead vehicles with the engine switched off to save fuel. And it is in that gap that the moral question comes into sharp focus. Are we solving the problem or just pushing it out of sight? In the next chapter, Homeless Life Stories will go deeper into another layer of this crisis when land, sea, and the economy all start to shift at once. Alaska doesn't just become colder in climate, it becomes colder in its chances for survival.
You're going to see a lot of people in camps like this because of the constraint on the rules and regulations. We're just trying to survive like anyone else.
Chapter 6. When land, sea, and the economy all slide à talency. In most other states, homelessness is usually linked to job loss, illness, or rent going up. In Alaska, there's another force quietly pushing in the background. The land itself is changing in ways that drag entire families down with it. From villages along the Bering Sea to fishing communities around Cook Inlet, the waters that once fed whole tribes are becoming unpredictable. Fish stocks are declining. Melting permafrost is eating away at the shorelines, and roads are literally sinking. When the land and sea can no longer support the communities that have clung to them for generations, the story of homelessness doesn't start in the city, it starts right there on the coast. The state's economy is no longer a safety cushion either. As fuel, food, and basic goods climb higher than the US average, everything from a gallon of milk to a bus fare weighs heavier on low-income families. For them, the question isn't how can we save a little more? It's do we pay for heat today or for medicine? And when a state is squeezed from both sides, by climate change on one hand and boom and bust resource industries on the other, the people standing on the lowest deck are always the first ones thrown overboard. In the next chapter, homeless life stories will step into places that look small on a map. Soup kitchens, mobile clinics, prayer rooms, but are quietly keeping this city from freezing solid in its heart. Chapter 7. Small fires in a snowstorm. Looking at Anchorage from above, you'll only see square blocks of buildings, thick snow, and cars moving slowly on slippery roads. But when you descend to the ground, winding through the windy alleyways, you'll encounter something the map doesn't show: small lighthouses that each night struggle to keep people alive, both physically and spiritually. Not far away, a small organization patrols at night. They carry blankets, warm socks, sleeping bags, a few bags of food, and simple painkillers. The most important thing they carry isn't in their car trunks, but in their short conversations. Are you okay tonight? Have you found the new warming center yet? We'll be back tomorrow. Don't move unless necessary, so we can find you. In a place where the cold can suffocate you in an hour, information is sometimes a form of relief. Some people were once homeless, now have small rented rooms, and still return every week with a pot of hot coffee and a box of pastries. They don't call it repaying a favor, they simply say, before, someone waited here for me. Now it's my turn to wait for someone else. In a large, slow-moving system, such small gestures are often the most timely. Chapter 8. Alaska in America's Mirror. If you only look at national statistics, Alaska is almost a small line at the bottom of the page. The U.S. has over 700,000 homeless people, a sharp increase after the pandemic, with familiar images, tents along freeways in California, crowded sidewalks in Portland, long lines of RVs in Seattle. On news screens, Alaska rarely appears. But when you put the 3,000 homeless people of Anchorage against the backdrop of this region's climate and geography, the picture immediately changes. In Los Angeles, homelessness means facing scorching sun, little rain, violence, and exhaustion. In New York, it means freezing nights, but a subway system, dense shelters, and a long-standing network of services. In Alaska, homelessness means living in a life or death game with nature, where a night sleeping in a car without heating could be the last time you see the sunrise. Homelessness in America is expensive here, but the price is higher than almost anywhere else. From afar, Alaska is a small part of America's homelessness crisis. But if you choose to look from the perspective of those walking on icy, wet shoes, you'll see the opposite. It is precisely the places on the edge of the map that are the clearest test of a nation's conscience. And that's why in the final chapter, Homeless Life Stories won't just ask, what must Alaska do? But directly, what are we, those of us sitting in warm homes, willing to change so that no one has to sleep in sub-zero temperatures anymore?
Man, sabía somebody.
Outro. Homeless Life Stories cannot transform Alaska with a single video. But there is one thing we can do: refuse to let people like Mark, the Alaska Native women, the men sleeping in old cars disappear into a footnote labeled winter statistics. If you've watched this far, you've already given them something the system rarely does: your time and your attention. Please don't stop there. Hit like so the algorithm doesn't bury this story under a pile of noise. Leave a comment so that city leaders and policymakers can see the world is watching. Share this video so one more person knows what is happening on the frozen edge of the United States. And if you believe no one deserves to sleep outside in minus 40-degree weather, subscribe to Homeless Life Stories so that every new episode becomes one more small step against the cold of indifference. One day we hope those winter waiting rooms in Anchorage will be empty, not because unhoused people have vanished, but because they finally have keys to their own doors. When that day comes, we'll look back at the winter of 2025 not as a meaningless scratch in history, but as the moment a city in the far north began learning how to keep its most vulnerable neighbors warm. And the last question, for each person watching this, is painfully simple. Will you stay behind the glass, or will you be one of the hands that helps open the door?